Hey there everyone, it's cloudchief, and in today's video I'm going over another Unity NM. In this video I'm going over Woodland Mender. This NM is a level 122 NM that you can pop in Yhoator Jungle at either G10, H7, or I10 for 1800 Unity accolades. This NM is a white mage base mob as it has an innate regen, and it also can do benediction. Throughout all my fights, I only ever saw it do benediction once during a fight, but from reports that I've seen, apparently it can do benediction multiple times. But we're going to get more into the strategies in a minute. So let's talk about the drops real quick. So the first drop is the staff, and in just looking at this, actually the staff seems to be pretty good. It's got some pretty good stats on it. Overall, I think it's a pretty solid staff. The only thing about it is, who really melees in staff? I mean, yes, all the mages can use it, and you could melee, but I mean, you're gonna be, nuking and stuff with mages, and this isn't really providing any benefit to mages outside of meleeing with it. And I mean, the regen's nice, but that's only effective during sunny weather. So if you want to go out and melee with a staff on some mage jobs, I could see you possibly using it and playing with it. But outside of that, I don't really see any practical use for it. And then there's the body piece. And honestly, looking at this thing, it is pretty darn good the way I see it. It's got just some really good stats on it that are going to be good for casting. Mainly, I see this as if you happen to pull hate, and you can pretty much guarantee yourself to get the cast off. Obviously, it's not 100% by itself, but I could totally see you stacking this with a spell interruption set to make sure that your spells just don't get interrupted at all if you're taking any hits. So it's really solid. I mean, 25% spell interruption with negative 13 immunity and, depending on your Unity ranking, 3 to 6% fast cast. Those stats right there, like I said, for a spell interruption set, it just seems, really solid. Not to mention it's got some decent HP and MP stats on it to boot. Outside of really a spell interruption sets, I don't see much use of it, but I definitely could see getting use out of it. My only complaint is that why isn't blue mage on it? We have all the other mages. I could see blue getting a lot of use out of it, but I mean, again, any of the jobs that can use it, if you end up pulling hate and you need to get a cast off, I think you should probably have this in your set. So now let's move on to the fight, and boy was this fight a whopper of a fight. It was just giving me a lot of struggle. I wasn't able to take it at 118, although I consider it to be possible to do it. I could potentially go back with certain jobs and see it being done. Not that obviously I recommend that. You should be the highest level you can and, putting your all into trying to clear it. So, it's a Trident NM, and it does all the Trident moves. Leaf Storm is by far the most dangerous thing that this NM can do. It is AoE damage that will inflict magic wind-based damage, but boy does it hurt from this NM. There were definitely times it was hitting me and my trust for 2,000 damage, which was absolutely ridiculous. There was definitely times it basically just one-shot at my entire party using Leaf Storm. This thing also seems to melee fairly fast, so it gets TP relatively quickly, and especially when it gets to lower HP, it will spam out TP moves. The other moves it does is Pinecone Bomb, which is a single target damage with additional effect of sleep, Entangle, which will inflict bind, and Drill Branch, which will do damage and will blind you. Entangle and Drill Branch are conal type moves where Pinecone is single target. I noticed that tier 2 and tier 3 skill chains tend to do substantially more damage. So setting up a trust setup, if you're soloing this or if you're doing it with a group, setting it up so you are doing some skill chains definitely do some really good damage. I was definitely seeing skill chains be anywhere between 2 to 4 times the damage that the weapon skill was if it was a tier 2 or tier 3 skill chain. especially light. Light seemed to do more than dark-based skill chains, but dark-based skill chains were still doing really good damage as long as they weren't tier 1 based skill chains. So considering how dangerous Leaf Storm is, and also just the fact that this NM can do Benediction, how should you approach it? Because that can make it quite a rough fight just with those two things in general. Well, I was actually having no luck with this NM whatsoever until I happened to stumble upon a little trick which makes this NM actually quite easy. So what happened to me was it ended up doing Leaf Storm and killed my tank and the other trust that was a melee trust, leaving only backline support jobs and myself. At this point, I pulled the NM away from the trust just to try and mitigate AoE damage, and all of a sudden I noticed that all it was doing in terms of TP moves at this point was spamming Pinecone Bomb. And it would literally just keep meleeing me over and over and over again, and then use Pinecone Bomb, and then melee over and over again and use Pinecone Bomb. And come to find out, if you only have one, character or one person within its AoE range and have it pulled away from the rest of the party, it will lock it into this mode where all it will do is spam Pinecone Bomb, and it will not use any other TP moves. Also, anytime that I was able to lock it in this mode, I never once saw Benediction go off. The only times I would ever see Benediction go off was when it was doing all the other TP moves it has in its list, when other, player characters or trusts are essentially in its AoE range. So I was able to take it down using NQ ambuscade gear, the stuff that's like Ares that was giving me damage taken down, and basically I was tanking the mob. And by tanking it and keeping it away from, all my backline jobs, it was honestly a relatively easy fight, because like I said, all he does is spam Pinecone Bomb. All it is a little bit of damage and then puts you to sleep, but then he's just going to melee you again and wake you up, or your trusts are just going to be healing you anyway, because you tanking and needing heals. So as long as you have a group set up that has the sustain to keep the tank healed, I could potentially see this being done with a trust tank. However, I'm not sure how you're going to get the trust tank to tank it and get the rest of your trusts out of its range, because for me, I had to pull it away to be able to lock it into this mode, rather than, just start tanking it. Had the trust kind of far back and maybe had some trust that would move away. Anytime I did that, that wouldn't work. I had to pull it back. So if you could figure out a way to somehow get hate off of your trust tank and have it pulled back, and then have your tank on it at that point and everyone else far away and you can move back, but I don't see how you can very easily do that. So you pretty much need a player character to tank this in some capacity. Like I said, I didn't have problems doing it on Dragoon in NQ ambuscade gear. And that about wraps everything up for Woodland Mender. Just, have someone who can tank it, pull it away from the party, and make sure no one else is close to the NM for the entirety of the fight, and that should lock it into Pinecone Bomb mode, and that's all it'll do. It won't do any other TP moves, it won't do Benediction. It honestly makes the fight an utter joke as long as your healers can keep up with healing and your tank isn't like getting utterly destroyed. Other than that, it is really an easy NM. However, if you don't lock it into Pinecone mode, I can see this being quite the challenging NM. Leaf Storm was utterly just wrecking me. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you got some value out of it. And as always, may you have success in all you do.